Unit 2, Substance and Accidents. Ob- uh, 2.1 Introduction. Finite beings are composed of a relatively permanent principle which remains primarily the same throughout secondary changes. The secondary principles which may come and go without producing a change in the primary mode. Primary mode of being, the relatively permanent principle is called substance, and secondary principles are called accidents. The notions of substance and accident may be acquired from the analysis of an external experience. For instance, our external senses reveal to us an unripe orange as a concrete whole which is extended in space, green colored sorbs, etc. The intellect conceives the qualities which may come and go as determinations which affect something under underneath these changes and are modified by them. The difference between the determinations and the subject is expressed by the notions accidents and substances which correspond to a reality existing in the extramental world. Taking these considerations into account, we can define substance as the being in itself of a finite essence, which is the basic inner principles of permanence of or continuity of that being which becomes a being is originally constituted by its act of existing and essence. It is posited as a limited but a real being with exists in itself autonomously as a substance being in itself and not in another. 2.2 Etymological meaning. The term substance is derived from the Latin substantia, which means standing under. Substantia is the equivalent rendering of the Greek ousia of Aristotle 384 to 322 BCE. Substance is the first of Aristotle's categories. Significance signifies being as existing in and by itself and serving as a basis for accidents. Nothing is more evident that things change. A piece of food may be hot or cold, lying flat or upright, yet it is still wood. But when it is completely burnt so as to be transformed into ashes and gases, it is no longer wood. The specific radical characteristics by which we describe but would have totally disappeared. Thus there are two kinds of changes. One affects the radical characteristics of things and the other in no way destroys these characteristics and so does not affect it fundamentally. Therefore it is necessary to recognize in each thing certain temporary principles and also a permanent principle which continues to exist in fundamental characteristics. It is to be in self and by itself. In the history of metaphysics, the metaphysicians have variously interpreted the experience of change and performance, developing their own perspectives on substance. 2.3 Development of the doctrine. In the West, Aristotle employs the term substance in criticizing Plato theory of forms. In the early work on category, substance is given as the principal category. Substances are concrete individuals like an individual man or an individual horse. Aristotle had also called this category what it is, the kinds man, horse, etc. be called substance in a secondary sense. Later on he dropped this view. Substance stands in contrast to other categories such as quality, place and actions which tell us something about substance. In the metaphysics, Aristotle further analysis concrete individuals as composites of matter and form. In books J and H. B argued substance as the individual form which was called substantial form in the Middle Ages. However, the ideas of substances as concrete individual and as the ultimate substratum of attributes and change are never completely set aside. His cosmology postulated immaterial celestial spaces and an unmoved mover as the cause of all celestial motions. These immortal substances were later smoothly integrated into medieval theology as angels and God respectively. Aquinas 1225 to 74 reconcile the teaching on uncreated bread and wine with the notions of substance which are substantially changed into Christ's body and blood through a supernatural actions will continuing to look and taste like bread and wine, and thus their perspectival accidents remaining unchanged. It is the theory of substitutions in the same where the humans being often spices are individuated by matter during life, but they lack this matter after death. However, they retain their identity and individual things thanks to the distinguishing qualities of their earthly history. Modern philosophers retained the idea of substances as that which exist independently. For Descartes, 1596 to 1650, there are only their substances, self, world, and God. Substances is that which needs nothing else to exist in the strict sense. There is only one substance which is totally independent, that is God. However, Descartes avoids pantheism by adding that we could also be called created substances that exist by the help of God. Extension is the attribute of the corporeal substance. It is one of the clear and distinct ideas. eh, Self. The self is the momentary act of thinking. Descartes did not intend to prove the extension of a substantial soul until he had introduced the idea of substance. While speaking of God, one could not be deceived believing that one thinks in the moment in which one thinks, but one could be deceived while believing that one's momentary act of thinking comes from a permanent subject or substantial soul. The substantial principle is not included in the clear and distinct idea of the thinking self. On the other hand, one tends to believe that all one's momentary instances of existing are connected in such a way that if one is deceived in this matter, then one is deceived by the author of nature. God himself once one proves the existence of an infinitely good and wise God who can neither deceive nor be deceived. One can safely assert the existence of a substantial soul. While Descartes faced the problem of how to perceive material beings, the mind is spiritual and that body and soul are not on a consubstantial principle in human. Consequently, we do not immediately become consequence of our bodily reactions or of any other material thing. The second difficulty, the only way of arriving at a direct intuitions is through consequences, which presupposes identity between the subject and the subject of knowledge. However, we live under the strong impressions of a material world around us. The existence of the material world is beyond rational doubt, but not beyond hyperbolical doubt. It does not become totally certain until we know of the existence of the God who will not deceive us. God. Proving God's existence is basic is Descartes' search for certainty. Descartes gave three arguments for the existence of God. Argument from the idea of the perfect infinite. I conceive of God as an infinite, independent, all-knowing, all-powerful substance by which I myself and all other things, if they actually exist, have been created. I therefore have the idea of the infinite, but the idea of infinity could not have been produced in my mind by other ideas of self and world of what to which are finite. It is not by removing the limits that I form the idea of infinity, but it is by limiting the positive idea of infinity that I form the idea of the finite. Consequently, before I form any other idea, I have the idea of infinity, which is a clear and distinct idea. It is obvious as the idea of the thinking self, because I can't conceive of anything finite unless I have an idea of the infinite. Therefore, since clear and distinct ideas must have objective value, there is actually something infinite which is perfect. Now this perfect being must exist. How else would I explain the origin of this idea in me? In other words, neither the external world nor I am perfect. The external world is not perfect because it is corporeal and changeable. I am not perfect because I doubt. Therefore, there must exist a perfect being who has put in me this idea of himself. Argument from contingency of the thinking self. I must conceive of the thinking self as continent, that is non not necessary, otherwise it would not be a doubting self. But I could not have the idea of a continent being unless I had a previous idea of the necessary because contingency is the negations of necessity. This previous idea of the necessary is not formed through the idea of the continent self, but is presupposed by the idea of the self. Here again the idea of the necessary is clear and distinct and implies that there is something necessary. Ontological argument: God is such a being that all perfections must be included in his essence. In other words, he must necessarily have all perfections. Since it is better to exist than not to exist, existence is a perfection which must be attributed to God. Hence, he therefore necessarily exists. In him, essence and existence are the same. Descartes did not add anything new to the ontological argument of Anselm, except that he called the idea of the greatest conceivable being an innate one, and added the simile of the valley and the mountain. I can't conceive a God unless as existing any more than I can a mountain without a valley. For mountain and valley, whether exist or not are inseparable. In the same way, we can't conceive a God unless as existing. Spinoza (1630–77) accepted Descartes' definitions of substance, but he was more consistent than Descartes in this conception of substance. By substance, I mean that which is on itself and conceived through itself. In the other words, that of which conceptions can be formed independently of any other conception. Ethics idea second: only God is such a substance. This substance is infinite and not finite. If it were infinite, then it would have to be conceived along with something else, which would it limit it. Then it would case to be a substance. An object which is not its own cause is dependent on another cause. That which is not dependent on another cause is a substance. No substance can dependent on another substance. Hence there is only one infinite substances. For Leibniz 1646 1716, an object which proper parts depends on these parts to exist. The true substances and monads which must be without parts of uh, spatial extensions that for the changes in modes are like mental events, and Levinas viewed the world as a plurality of monads. These are simple substances which are not made up of parts. These monads are the true elements of the nature. In fact, the elements of things they have the following characteristics. Monads are real. They are real thing are not ideas. To monads are simple. They can't come to be expect by creation, nor case to be expect by annihilations. Will compound substances are produced by aggregations and separations of monads, generations and corruptions. The monads are independent. There are a plurality of monads which are independent of one another and dependent on God alone. God alone. One monad can't influence another four monads enjoy perceptions. All monads which are simple substances enjoy some measure and measure of perceptions. Perception all monads which are simple substances enjoy some measure of perception through an different degree. Five monads are dynamic. The monad is not inert, for each simple substance has its own activity. Six monads are substance express the whole universe in its own way. Through each monad mirrors the whole it does it in its own unique way. Leibniz ranked all substances according to the degree of their knowing capacity. Inorganic substances that have perception and appetitions but no appetitions to living substances below the level of human that have souls and therefore a certain degree of consequences or appreciations. Three human is capable of appreciations of both truths of fact reason why all things come to be in this pre-established harmonious plan for the world. In God there is no appetitions in the sense of desire for more perfections. Locke 1632 to 1704 held that substances is an unknowable substratum or something we know not. What supporting the qualities we perceive the regarded persons not as immortal souls but as forensic entities whose presence is secured simply by the continuity of consciousness. Berkeley 1685 to 1750 attacked Locke's substratum. In the case of material substances as observed, bodies are simply bundles of qualities, but the retained immaterial substances of souls. Hume 1711 to 76 dissolved the soul into a bundle of its perceptions. He ostensibly destroyed the last remains of traditional substance and shifted the role of substance to perceptions, which are the independently existing components of the universe. Kant 1724 to 1804 bound substance to the logical role of being a subject of predications. He argued for an eternally persisting substrate which is not an autonomous thing but merely a necessary conditions for appearance of change. In India, substance is the substratum where actions and qualities inner and which is the coexisting material cause of the composite things produced from it. It is the substratum of all things. A substance is destroyed only by the destruction of the substratum. It is not destroyed either by its own effect or by its own cause. It means that the relations of the destroyer and the destroyer does not exist between two substances which have entered into the relations of effect and cause. Thus the sutra states substance is not annihilated either by effect by the cause versus 112 for possessor. The substance is the main category and all categories depend on it for their existence. So it is first name being the substratum of qualities. It is different from qualities. It is different from qualities. For instance, in the case of a white cloth, the white color is experienced as a property residing in the substratum cloth. Therefore, white color and cloth are different in that essence. The word property does not mean only qualities, but it is used in a wider sense and includes all the five kinds of properties, that is substance, quality, moment, the universal, and visesa, which subsist in their substract by inherent relations of substance does not possess qualities at the first moment of its production. In the qualities arises simultaneously with substances, there can't be any distinction between them, and if the qualities do not arise, then substances would be free from qualities. Then the definitions of substance as that which possesses qualities would be violated. To meet this difficulty, it is said that substance is the substract of qualities, either in the relations of intimate union, samabhaya, sambandha, or accident negations. Pragava qualities inherent in a substance form a second moment of its production until its destruction. A substance it is also the material cause of its composite product. For example, threads are the material cause of cloth made by their combinations. Only a substance is capable of producing an effect out of its top. These substances are nine: earth, fire, air, water, either time, space, spirit, and mind. The Vaisesika philosophy is pluralistic and realistic, but not materialistic, since it admits spiritual substances out of the nine substances. The first five, that earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the called physical, since each of them possesses a unique quality sensed by the external sense. Smell is the unique property of earth and other substances of smell only if mixed up some quantity of earth. There is smell in muddy water but not in pure water. In the same way, taste is the property of water, color of light, touch of air, and sound of ether. The substances of earth, fire, water, and air are both eternal and non-eternal. The atoms of earth, water, fire, and air are eternal, as an atom is indivisible and can neither be produced nor destroyed. All others are non-eternal, as they are produced by combinations of atoms and are subject to destructions. There are four kinds of atoms: earth, water, fire, and air, each having its own special quality. Ether is the fifth physical substance, the substratum of the quality of sound. The sound is perceived but not ether. It is one and eternal, as it is indivisible and does not dependent on any other substances for its existence. It is all preventing it, as it has an unlimited dimensions, whose effect is perceived everywhere. Time and space are also eternal, all preventing in imperceptible, partless, and indivisible. Time causes our cognizance of past, present, and future of the younger and older. Space causes our cognizance of east and west, here and there, and near and far. There are innumerable souls that are independent, individual, eternal, and all on preventing spiritual substances, the substratum of the quality of consequence. The souls are divided into two: the individual and the supreme. The supreme is only one, the creator of the happy, I am sorry, and so on. The individual is not one but many, being different in different bodies. Mind is an internal sense which is atomic, many, eternal, and imperishable. Each self itself, from the fact that the self must perceive internal states through an internal sense, just as it perceives external objects through external senses. Moreover, the mind is relative in the perceptions of external objects we perceive color, touch, taste, smell, and sound subsequently. Even through all the external senses may be in contact with objects simultaneously, coming into contact with only one sense at a time. 2.4 kinds of substance. Primary and secondary substance. Primary substance is very individual substance. Example: a single inanimate body such a bit of gold or a piece or a paper. A single plant such a every rose plantain or tapioca. Every single animal such as a every cow, buffalo, goat or elephant. Or single human like Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi or Muhammad. Secondary substance is the substance expressed by the universal idea representing a class. Example: human, animal, organism. Body substance: plant, fish, bird, etc. Complete and incomplete substance. Complete substance is that which possesses everything that its constitutions and essence requires for its existence and for the proper functioning of its activities. Its nature demands no further union with the substantial or principles. For instance, every human consisting of body and soul is a complete substance capable of existing and of promoting and of performing its natural functions of vegetancy, sentency, and sentiency and rational life. In the same way, every brute, plant, and inorganic body are complete substances, and incomplete substances requires to be conjoined with some other substantial co-principle so as to constitute a complete substance. Each substantial principle taken alone is sufficient to exist, or at least is insufficient for all the body can perform the functions of agency and sentiency. Human needs a material body for this function. Simple and composite substance. Simple substance does not consist of entitatively complete substances of this kind of absolutely simple. However, one can also speak of certain substances as naturally simple, which consist of parts which are material and entitatively distinct but naturally indivisible and inseparable. The ultimate physical components of the universe like protons and electrons would be naturally simple. In this sense, composite substance is complete substance consisting of incomplete substantial principles entitatively distinct among themselves in such a manner that their union results in a single unified nature. The principal complement is the make substance of a body and soul. The soul does not inhere in the body as an incident in its subject. Not does the body inherit the soul, nor do they coexist by side as if each were independent of the other. 2.5 Characteristics of substance. We do not have not a single current concept of substance. Hence it is to be identified and separated into the following characteristics. Stands wait movie paduchi. Characteristics stands for a better understanding. A, independence. The ontological primary of substance arises chiefly from their independence in their ability to subsist. Independence of substance excludes only dependence on a substratum and not dependence on a cause such as the ultimate cause. Hence, there can be substances which are caused that is created substance. Independence may be either absolute or relative. Independence means that something exists on not only in itself but also of itself. Such a being does not depend on anything else in any way whatsoever. Only God can be such a substance. Relative independence means that something exists in itself but not of itself. It is in this sense that we speak of the independence of substance. Here, strictly speaking, substance denotes only the substantial whole yet essential parts which go to constitute this whole. Example, body and soul are also spoken of as substances. All the substances usually stands out independently as what is relatively. It is the sense that we depend on anything else in way whatsoever. Only God can be such a substance. Relative independence means that something exists in itself but not of itself. It is in this sense that we speak of the independence of substance. Here, strictly speaking, substance denotes only the substantial whole yet essential parts which go to constitute this whole. Example, body and soul are also spoken of as substances. All the substances usually stands out independently as what is relatively persistent. In contradictions to its changing appearances, anything that exists in itself, even if it lasts only for an instant, it's truly substance. Survivability and permanence. For something to change, it must exist before, during, and after the change. That is, it must survive its substances, survive its accidents. There can be no substances without accidents. A substance is either material or spiritual. If material is, it must have the accident of quantity. If spiritual, it must have the accidents of intellect and will. The subject of change substance that outlives its accidents, whatever comes to be at the change. Experience provides us with numerous examples of this permanence and survival. Substance and nature. Nature is derived from the Latin participle nature, natus, burn, a form of the verb nasci, to burn, to be burned. The nature of a thing suggests what the thing is born for, what it is originated to do, what it exists to accomplish. The nature. Substance and nature. Substance and nature. Nature is derived from the Latin participle natus, born, a form of the nature is derived from the Latin participle natus, born, a form of the verb nascere, to be born. The nature of a being suggests what the thing is born for, what it is originated to do, what it exists to accomplish. The nature of a thing, it is reality considered as accompaniment for actions or operations. It is the first radical interesting principle of its movement. It is the basic, the radical, the fundamental principles of rest and movement in the body. A body is equipped with powers of faculties by means of which it operates or is acted upon. These powers or faculties are the proximate principles of operations. We call nature the first of radical principles to distinguish it from the proximately principles. Nature has powers and operate by means of powers. It is the first principles of the activity which proceeds from the powers, which are the proximate principles of actions. The relations between substance and nature can be explained in this way. As we have just seen, nature in the radical or the ultimate principles of all operations in a particular being. Different beings have specifically different activities. For instance, neither does the iron act like gold, nor gold like iron, nor iron like radium, nor radium like argon, nor argon like hydrogen. As long as the thing is what it is, its activities remain specifically the same activities that determined by some principle within the things itself. It is this ultimate interesting principle of activity is nature. Nature is being in itself and not in another. Hence, substance is nature, insofar as the former is also the ultimate principles of being in itself. 2.6 Accidents. The original Aristotelian term symbiosis of predicamental accident meant going along with or occurring with something else. Size and color, for example, go with our proposes the bodies of which they are merely the modifications. They can change. Will the body nature remains the same. Sapling the and tree do not differ in substance in spite of change in size, shape and color. The same individual human passes through the different stage of embryo for 40 years, childhood, youth, maturity and old age, changing in many ways in size, shape, color, activities, place and time, but remaining identical. The substance, these accidental characteristics are really distinct from the substance, regardless of any considerations by the human mind. They are distinct realities that occur or to or belong to a substance. The etymology of the Latin term accidents of falling upon the happening express it quite widely. 2.7 Characteristics of the accidents. Dependence. Change like in the color, size, reveals of accidents accidental character of such thing through it is not the essential trait of an accident, for an accident may remain the same during the whole course of its subject existence as do the intellectual faculties in a human. What necessarily distinguishes an accident from substance is the former dependent characteristics, whether being it has through the being of something more basic, the substance. It is not, it is nature too big to have been just through itself. Witness can't exist and in reality except through a body. That is why it is called a nature, because it is a conceptually intelligible. It is essence because it is a potency to the being that corresponds to it, but it does not have its being in an independent. Unlike substance, it requires also finite nature other than itself through which to receive and have its being. This dependence in the other order to essence is the distinguishing trait of an accident. It is an essence that depends upon another essence in its very role of essence as a potency of being. Because of this dependence, it is not all on the same level as substance is. It is an essence not just through itself but through a substantial redness is an essence only because the primary instance of essence of body can be read. It may be called an accidental essence or an accidental nature, distinguishing it from essence meant absolutely, that is from substance. Inherence, the very nature of very accident is such that it is meant for being in something other than itself, that is the inner substance. It is an accusations of a potency. It is the accidental act of subject. It accuates of substance in a secondary way. Redness, for instance, make actually read a face that in itself was just able to blush. Accordingly, it accusates a potency of redness. The potency here, it is substance. Redness is one of its accidental former acts. Every accident then is in a subject that is a substance. A very accident accuates a substance is very accident, therefore an inherent form. The more basic accidents like quantity and qualities are undoubtable form interesting to the thing. The acute color inheres in a body, adding a new form to the thing's interesting constitutions. But to the accidents such as where and when a thing is at any inherent form, although there seems to be no interesting additions to the reality of a pie when it is brought from the pantry into the dining room, still there is a real accidental different occurring to it from the new and really different place. Each category of accidents is a supreme so genius of being an original mold into which the existential act is cast. One kind of accident therefore is not to be conceived as modeled on another accident such as where and when need to be expected to conform to the type found in quality. There is the possibility that some accidents may accutate a thing extrinsically, that is without affecting any interesting change in its constitutions, as in the case of the pie being in different places. If the non-inherent accidents presupposes the inherent ones, then accidents may be said in general to inhere as substance is said subsist. Yet will every accident is dependent on, and in this sense is in a substance. Some accidents need to be inherent. In the case of inherent accident, the substance through which they have their being is the substance in which they're in here. By accurating their substance, these accidents have their being substance through it have their being through it. By making a body whiteness has its being as the modifications of the body. In the case of participated existence, as has been seen, the situation is different. The existential act inheres in or accutates the essence it makes it belongs to the that essence. It is an accident of that essence, but what it depends on primarily is an agent other than that essence. It is through another substance the existing efficient cause. The essence it accumulates depends upon it or for distinction from the very nothing. The existential act is accordingly prior to the corresponding essence. The predicamental accident, on the other hand, in subsequent to what it accumulates and so has its being through the nature in which in it inherits. It requires also an efficient cause for it involves new being. In its efficient cause may be the substance in which it inherits it as in case of the act of intellections or an agent other than that substance is, as in the case of the electric plate here heating the water. Unlike dependence, inherency is not necessarily required for an accident where and when a thing is, for instance, are really accidental to it yet not inherent forms. They are in the thing in the sense of dependence on it in being, but they do not, like size or whiteness, add to the intrinsic constitutions of the thing. Being of a being, just an accident may termed a nature or an essence or a form, so it may be called a thing or a quality or a being in a secondary sense. This term denotes what exists primarily, namely a substance, a tree, or a stone is unhesitatingly called a thing, but the term is applied only with misgivings to a color or a sound or a size. Yet each of these is something in some diluted sense. Therefore, a color or a sound is a thing, but any such accident is always a quantity that belongs to another quantity. The substance in this sense, it is a quantity in a corresponding secondary way. Everything accident may be termed a being insofar as it is in some way, since it has existence only through a substance and belongs to a substance. It is rather a being of a being ends entice. Distinctions of a accidental being. Accidental existence is really distinct from substantial existence. Accidental existence is a being in or in regard to real accidents, that is real distinction. The substantial being of a human really continuous. Will the accidental being of one's height and weight increase with years? The substantial being in the tendency in reality without that accidental being. An accident really exists as a modification of a really existent substance only. In the real dependence upon substantial existence can be accidental existence be had in identical existence can be really dependent and really independent in the same respect, that the one has to be really distinct from the other. In other words, accident is that which is not in itself but in another. It is a mode of being but not autonomous. It does not exist in itself but in another. Hence, an accident is whatever is added in anyway to the another already primarily determined in its being. Accidents are mainly of two kinds of physical and non-physical. Physical accident is the real inner principle of a being which further perfects the being in which it inherits. Example, the operations, habits, and faculties of an experiencing agent. Faculties are the agent's proximate principles of action. Example, intellect, will, memory. Habits are the lasting depositions which by the innate or acquired presence make easier the work of the active powers. Example, faculties. Non-physical accident is predicate which does not belong to the definition but says something more about the being. Example, property of logical accident. Properties any positive predicate which is not a part of the definitions but which necessarily flows from the definition. Example, humans laughing. Logical accident is any predicate which are neither a part of the definitions but necessarily flows from the definition. Example, human singing.